I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We are starting off 2022 with another perfect pod. Andrew Quo, happy freaking New Year's.
And happy New Year's, Ben. I am a new dude. It is new dude season, man. Everything's changed. You might not even recognize me next time you see me.
How tall are you now?
Regress back because tall boys are over. That was last year. So now I'm 5'2". I'm tinier than ever with more pizza than ever.
Is it an oxymoron to say that short culture is rising?
Do oxymorons can they involve verbs? So like, can you be like a turtle running fast? Like, that's not an oxymoron, right? Or is it?
A fast turtle?
Yeah.
A speedy turtle? Turtles are well known for winning races.
Well, you turned it
Or at
into an
least
adjective,
one.
so that works, right?
Look, I'm a writer. I don't know about this shit. Verbs, adjectives. This sounds like stuff I did for the joy of basketball.
Sounds like you lost your oxymoron game in 2022.
It was strong in 2021, but I'm slumping early on. How was your New Year's Eve?
Fucking tight.
Did you lick off some shots for 2021?
Raved a bit. Hung out with my man, the new mayor of New York City. Watched him get sworn in on my television. Had a mini rave in here. Had the laptop booming. Was dancing. Maybe had a little cup of tea. You know how I do.
Yeah, Eric Adams.
Your
Rung
guy?
in the new year. He's
So far, so good.
fucking Swag City. It's lit.
Listen, other podcast years didn't have the swagger we have this year. And when you have that swag, like our mayor, it's a new city out there.
Well, yeah, a lot of podcasts are wallowing. And
It's swaggerless.
hey, welcome to Swag City, guys.
Yeah.
You are tuned in.
So our mayor, Eric Adams, claims that if the mayor has swagger, then the city has swagger. Therefore, New York City is back. And I kind of took that as a threat. I was like, well, what back do you mean? Like, Bloomberg back, Koch back, Dinkins back? Like, this is, I don't know which back you got.
I do appreciate his clear resentfulness towards the Bostonians who have helmed our city over the last 20 years.
That's tight.
Just no shout outs to Bloomberg or de Blasio at all, from what I can tell.
Yo, the Nets won the trade. Again.
Swag City, baby.
So he hates the media. He's been like especially prickly. Like, I don't know, 76ers team prickly. Live a day in my shoes, that kind of vibe. And he started off his relationship with the city on an uneven note. And your boy, and usually my boy too, Nate Silver, came out and said, is he the next Democratic presidential candidate?
I saw that.
Weird thing to declare. Very odd. I don't know where that came from, but I'm down to clown it.
Looking at Eric Adams, who I find a entertaining and compelling character in many of the same ways that Trump is. They are clearly different, but there's something about that weirdo New Yorker energy from someone in that age bracket that's just magnetic. You can't deny it.
Yep.
It's why every movie character actor for the last 30 years has that same kind of outer borough New York accent. There's just a gravitas to it that makes you listen. Like, I don't care if the movie's set in LA. All the character actors sound like they're from Bensonhurst.
Right. I mean, people say we're living like main character syndrome, where everybody is like the main character in the story of the world, right? And you're the goddamn mayor of New York City. Like, that's a big deal. We'll never be mayor, as far as we know, of New York City. And we might even be swagger less than he is. But, like, he took the helm as if this was his damn world. And for him to come off with that vibe, I thought, like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is pure comedy. And then for someone like Nate Silver to be like, well, is he going to be president? I'm like, have we taken this main character thing a little too far?
I did think it was funny that we watched Eric Adams say, Swagger City. And Nate Silver's response was,
is he going to
this guy's good. This is presidential timber.
I mean, when is he going to shut down a bridge in spite? When is he going to lounge in a closed beach with his family? New Jersey just hits different, man. I
gotta say, he's got that roast pork sandwich on deck.
Yeah.
Vegan. Sorry. Yeah. No premio sausage in the fridge for this mayor, for this his owner.
Yeah.
I gotta say, so far I like what Eric Adams is doing. I like him so far.
Fair.
He's funny, which is crucial. He hasn't done anything bad, and he's already been in office for, like 48 hours.
Yeah. Did you see that footage of him taking the J train from his summer home into Gracie Mansion, and he saw like a dust up, and he called 911. He was like, "There's a fight outside the Kosciuszko station. Send somebody immediately." And then people got on him. I believe you pronounce it Kosciuszko because people got on him for pronouncing it maybe the wrong way. How would you pronounce that part of Bed-Stuy?
You know what? I'm not sure what the actual pronunciation is. I don't know.
On the subway, sometimes it's Kosciuszko.
I would guess that his pronunciation is correct, or at least an accepted one from people from Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. For people to call out someone like from Brooklyn who lives in Jersey for messing up that name, I doubt it.
Yeah. He does summer. He does spend the weekends in Bed-Stuy.
But there are some places like that, like Graham Avenue, right? Mm-hmm. If you talk to a like older Puerto Rican family, they might call it Graham, or you talk to an old Italian guy, they might call it Graham. So like there are differences in the way that people say streets, even like generationally, culturally, whatever. So I didn't feel like Eric Adams made a blunder in the least.
Yeah. And some of these Dutch ass names are really confusing. A lot of consonants. But Houston has always been the most confusing to my friends who visit New York. Like, why Houston? And I'm like, I'm supposing it's someone's name and just has a unique principle to it. But it wasn't Alan Houston, aka Jason Tatum, original.
I mean, when the first apartment that I lived in when I was very, very young in Rochester was in
Rochester,
a neighborhood called Charlotte.
Oh, that's confusing.
Which is spelled exactly like Charlotte.
Well, why was it pronounced Charlotte?
I mean, the good folk of upstate New York rejected the French origins, I suppose. Not on our watch.
You've been watching Sex and the City? Talking about New York and Charlotte.
No, but I've been listening to a lot of good Charlotte lately.
Oh, nice. I think LaMelo Ball of the Charlotte Hornets will be a good one. He's pretty good. You been watching any TV? What's up?
I've been using the Tubi app quite a bit lately, I gotta say. This sounds like it's branded content, but Tubi's kind of good.
What's that?
So it's a free app. It's kind of what Hulu was initially like, pre-subscription, where you can watch whatever you want, but there's just commercials. Mm-hmm. So Tubi has a kind of indecipherable, opaque mix of movies and TV shows. It doesn't really make any sense in the way of, oh, this is Criterion. oh, okay, these are horror movies, whatever, Chiller or whatever one of those apps is called. I forget exactly. I don't know. Nothing really makes any sense. I can't tell if it's through a specific network or what. Like, there's Columbo. You can watch Columbo if you want. And then there's, I don't know, like odd French movies. It's just mishmash of TV and films, but it's kind of great. And it's a lot of stuff that hasn't been on HBO or Netflix or Amazon lately. So it's just kind of diving into a new medley of things to watch. I watched that show, what's it called? It's a French movie called Tell No One yesterday on it. I've seen it before. It's pretty good. But I just hadn't even noticed that film on any streaming service in years. And it's like, boom, there it is. Watchable.
Right.
Anyway, I kind of like it for just a new free way to gorge on more content.
When there was just like satellite TV, or before we had apps for every television network, I used to just watch like the same movies like 8 times, whatever was on HBO, like Children of Men. I think I've seen that movie by accident like 15 times because you flip it on. It's watchable. It looks good. I like Clive Owen, whatever. I like The Future. And by accident, I just watch it over and over. But now with On Demand, I don't really rewatch anything, and I kind of miss just like stumbling into a vibe.
Well, like, here's what's recommended on Tubi. The movie Rome, Species, The Awakening, Passionate Revenge, Set It Off, The Fix, The Rockford Files, Death Wish 4, Dial M for Murder, Gotti, Blood Diamond. Like, it's all over the fucking place.
That's a trash starting lineup, man. There's not an all-star in there.
I'm not saying it's a good lineup. I'm saying it's just bizarre. Passionate Revenge.
Yeah.
Somehow that's in my algo.
Yeah. Weird, man. Well, like...
Hoodlum is on there. Major Pain.
Major Pain.
Carlito's Way.
Carlito's Way might be one of the worst movies that is this celebrated. Carlito's Way was like the favorite movie of all rappers from the 1990s. I don't know how we always find I always find my way back to the 1990s rap scene, but you mentioned Carlito's Way. Now I'm spinning.
I feel like we all liked Carlito's Way back when it came out. You know?
That's true.
Benny Blanco from the Bronx. Who
John Lake was.
Who doesn't like that guy?
Yeah. I know. Al Pacino.
The game keeps pulling him back. He's trying to get out. Al Pacino.
Yeah.
It was one of the just kind of Al Pacino reprising Scarface, but just swapping out being Cuban for Puerto Rican, right?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a sequel, right? A wink.
No,
sequel.
he wasn't even. Didn't have the same name.
But it was a wink, right? Like all the characters were the same, and he's coming out of jail. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. Yeah, I don't know that it was written with that in mind, but there was certainly appeal of that. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
Was it bad? Was it bad? Were we wrong?
It's tough because in the time you really love like people backing down in the paint, shooting like these baby hook shots, and you're like, ooh, all time great. And then you look at it in 2021, you're like, yo, can anyone touch glass, right? So in 2021, Carlito's Way is different than it hit originally. And you're right, Scarface dies in the original movie, of course, but it's kind of like a dream sequence movie. Everything's kind of a hallucination, right?
Fuck, was Carlito's Way bad?
Yes, it was bad, man. Come on. Like, okay, this is the hottest. Wow. This is the hottest take I have. Heat was a bad movie.
Oh!
I know.
Man,
know.
It's our next episode of the Restreamables.
Oh, Duchovny loved Heat too,
one,
man.
This one we're going to talk about Heat. Rounders is out. Heat is in.
It's because Dr. D, when he was on this show and recorded the perfect pod, when I mentioned Heat, he was like, oh, yeah, what an amazing film. And it got me thinking about Heat, and I rewatched it, and I'm like, yo, there's some great parts to it. Like, the vision is awesome. There's some scenes, the shootout sequence with no music and just gunfire. Amazing. But, like, the dialogue is very tough. The tropes are really hard. It's like, I'm a graphic designer from Parsons. Like, this is just really insane.
Oh, you wanted some RISD action. Now I see it.
Can we get some RISD in the monitors? No, but like some of the dialogue is like when you see the heat coming around the corner, and I'm like, it's. I've spent my entire life trying to figure out what corny actually meant. Like, did it remind me about a part of my life that I hope to forget? Like, when someone says something is corny, what does it mean?
Does it remind you of a shootout in L.A. that you once had while trying to rob a bank during broad day? Like, oh, that was corny as hell.
I mean,
Why did I do that?
I watched this amazing show. It's a bit old. It's called Fuckboy Island. And they were mocking a lot of things that I think we used to have an easier time with. Now it just, some of the contestants seem like dumb and charming. And I'm like, I don't know what I think corny is anymore. Because that was an amazing and kind of like baffling show. Did you see it?
I don't think so. I watched another one of those. Maybe did I watch Seduction Island? Was that one?
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Something where a bunch of horny contestants were put on an island and then told that the only rule was that they weren't allowed to bone.
Was this Manhattan Island this New Year's Eve?
Boneless Island? The new mystery meat?
Yeah, it sucks because like we're deprived right now in the era of COVID of being surrounded by people who hopefully are different than us. Who knows? Eye of the beholder shit. But like I have not been around like a club guy in a while because I just haven't been to any clubs in a while. So like when this idea of like corny or like fuckboy comes up, I have to like constantly shift my framing of it. Like, do you
Go on.
like? Is there an article that I'm trying to get you to transition to that probably kind of brings this up that we had maybe talked about before the pod started? You're like, go on. I'm like,
What do you mean?
so let me go on. It's like, okay,
I'm not picking up what you're laying down.
okay, we're gonna talk about racial tension. Go. It's like, what do you mean? Keep on going. You lost me at fuckboy.
No.
Go off.
So you were talking about fuckboys.
Speaking of
Oh, yeah. Fuckboy Island. Yeah, you brought up the show a little while ago. How is that? Oh, right. So there's a book. I'm not sure if it's on like Tyrant Books or no. It got picked up by a larger publisher, and I think the author got I think he got a 6-figure advance for his book, which was quite a bit for a relatively unknown writer. His name is Sean Thor Conroe. Sounds like we're about to have him on. Apparently he's a basketball fan, so sure.
Is he a Celtics fan?
I don't know. Sean Thor, come on and talk hoops sometime. But he has a book coming out, I think it's due at the end of the month, called Fuckboy. And in his New York Magazine profile, he kind of starts out by talking about the pillars of fuckboydom. And I think they nailed it. I'm going to read the paragraph. I think this is the first time someone's actually gotten it right. He says, there's what he calls the spineless, bitch-ass dude whom other men look down on because they're not living up to the, quote, masculine standard of toughness and integrity. That's a fuckboy.
Tobias Harris, go on.
Then there's a untrustworthy male in the romantic context.
Oh, Joel Embiid, got it.
There's the hype beast fuckboy, decked out in Balenciaga.
Tyrese Maxey. Whoa, this book is good.
And then there's the guy who uses sex with more powerful men for protection.
Oh,
so what are you going to use? What are you going to say here?
Oh no, Colin Sexton. Wow, the new Sixer, predicting the future. Incredible.
But anyway, those 4 definitions I think are correct. There was something weird how the word went from being something used by guys like Gucci and Cameron to being used by like teenage girls to describe guys who were unfaithful. Right. And then it also switched over to streetwear, where like the people who were waiting, in lines for hats were called.
Not online well. For cookies hats.
No. Totally different.
Never. That's a very broad definition. He covers a lot of bases there.
But it's
Like that's half the men in the world, right?
Well, I mean, I would say, yeah, a lot of guys are spineless. I guess a lot of guys are untrustworthy. A lot of them are decked out in Balenciaga, and a lot of men use sex with more powerful men for protection. So yes, it's roughly 99% of men.
It sounds very Christian to me. It's like, well, if you don't abide by God's rules, you're a fuckboy.
And then the writer says, I ask Conroe, the author of Fuckboy, and he uses the spelling with 2 C's and a B-O-I, which is, to me,
Classic.
like a classic one and not one that applies to the untrustworthy male
Yeah.
untrustworthy male in a romantic context. That is not that. Yet the author of this piece in Vulture uses fuckboy with Fuckboy.
Interesting. Koziutsko.
And then she asks this writer who wrote a novel about a fuckboy whose name is also Conroe and uses biographical details from his own life whether he is a fuckboy, and he says, oh hell no.
Never me.
Oh, absolutely not. What do you mean?
Like,
Then he concedes later that when he was writing the book, he was like 1/16 fuckboy.
a little bit. I mean, rest in peace to the god Virgil. But when he tragically passed away, there was that image of the crew with Kanye West hanging out at Paris Fashion Week, where they were all decked out in Louis Vuitton, the famous picture, right? And I felt like that was kind of the era of the origin of this whole idea. I associate it with like hype beast stuff, like people just going all out. You roll out, people wearing off-white. You look like Kyle Kuzma, basically. And I thought it was funny, but then it turned into something darker, like somebody who just like played with people's emotions, or like was an evil person at dating, whatever, you know? Like, is Kendall Roy a fuckboy? He's rapping to, tunes, going up to that meeting, double crossing all of his family members, killing people, doing drugs. Like, that's not very Christian.
If I was, no, it's not very Christian, Andrew. If I was going to trace the lineage of fuckboy, I could be wrong. This is just my perception of it.
Yeah.
Was that it started out in jail.
Yeah.
And it was a guy who had sex with other men for protection was called a fuckboy. That then was transferred outside of those pearly gates to a guy who was not manly. I mean, we're talking there's homophobia involved in this. Yes,
For sure.
But that it went from guy in jail having sex with men for protection to an unmasculine, unmanly dude outside, like a guy who's a punk, which is also kind of a jail term in that exact same way. It just used like punk. And then it split into fashion fuckboy, which is the guys you're talking about, like draped in Pyrex or whatever. And then the other one going the other direction towards teenage girls, like Zoomer young millennial girls using it for untrustworthy guys. That's my breakdown of fuckboy. Am I right? I don't know, but that is how it occurred in my opinion.
Yeah, and the show was confusing because it injected some of like the fumes, the ghosts of metrosexual stuff into it, because the contestants of the show were just like dudes who lifted weights and dated a lot. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, I'm confused. Like, they just don't want to commit to a relationship. Sounds just like the real world to me, you know?
Yeah, that to me, that's third wave fuckboyism.
Third wave, what is fifth wave fuckboyism?
Oh my God, we're not even there yet.
We're not even up to 4, dude.
No, it's ended at third. I'm excited to see where
The future of fuckboyism?
where fuckboys go in the future.
I mean, only time will tell. Did you see this article that tried to combine millennials and Zoomers into the same generation?
Okay, you're all fuckboys.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, all of you are the same. it has that fuckboy energy to it where it's just like, this just sounds like every guy I know who isn't going to church on Sunday.
Can you explain the concept between combining millennials, who are a enormous generation already,
Enormous. Right.
with another one that's younger than them and not part of their generation? What would be what's the impetus for this combo pack?
I would read it as somebody who is trying to put their brain around what the Zoomer generation is, and it's kind of happening, and like we're in the middle of it, so we don't really know. But there's a gravitational pull with millennials, as there was with boomers, right? Because their ideas kind of, it's every other. Gen X, tranquility, amazing. And millennials kind of like stomped down and declared all these rules with technology, with socials and all that. So I think it's hard to differentiate between the two because we're in the middle of Zoomer culture, right? Like, we don't know yet. So I think it's just lazy thinking, but it's also interesting thinking. Do they have the same principles of like the girl boss principle? Like, is that still a thing? Or is social justice still bigger than ever? Is it guided by principles that like we've been around for the last, like, experiencing for the last 5 or 6 years? Yes, because that's just how time progresses. That's an abstract ass answer. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to wrap my head around whether a group as large as the millennials can be pigeonholed as having like a specific kind of worldview. And people do this all the time. Like, they like avocado toast. They like a certain hue of pink. Yeah. That's who they are as a group.
I think it's main character syndrome, right? Is it the main character syndrome? It's like, you're working for somebody, but remember, you're the main character of your own show, which I love. Like, that's a great idea.
It's one of those things that, is that even new? Is that how people have often felt? I don't know.
Gen X certainly did not have that. We were going through Steely Dan records in a dusty record shop with Steve Zahn. Like, I don't think the famous stories of Gen X, like Beck or independent music, there wasn't really main character things happening. Like, it took Jadakiss many decades to step away from the many groups he was associated with.
This is one of those ideas that, I mean, it feels like it's a euphemism for just something like narcissism or egotism.
I'm not mad at either of those things.
Self-involvement. No,
Yeah,
I'm not
those
even
are
being
good
critical.
ideas. Yeah.
I just mean, this idea just sounds like we're using a more contemporized term for something that's been around forever. My really bland, boring way of explaining it would just be social media, right? That you literally now have the opportunity to ruin your life with one tweet or one Instagram post.
Or make your life with one tweet or one post.
Maybe so, right. But either way, you now are the main character because you have been granted access to a platform of your own that's just you.
Yeah.
Like, here it is. Here's your face. It's the Andrew Quo channel. Right. I know it says Earl Boykins, but it's Andrew Quo.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day because, like, it used to be insane to be like, I'm into fuckboys and I'm going to publish a book about it. Like, someone's going to put that, edit it and print it and send it to shops and I can buy that. Like, that's an amazing achievement to get to that point. Buy The Joy of Basketball, available in all independent stores and on your biggest online sellers.
Yeah, go get that. Go get that.
Go get that book. But now a few tweets that you can fire off in an afternoon could reach more people even. So the mechanism that kind of validated something in a Gen X generation no longer exists, right? Like, being a published author has a different meaning than it does then than it does now, I believe. And this is great. This is like the flattening of ideas, and one would think through that you would get some really great stuff. So far, I'm not sure that's quite happened. We've had the term fuckboy, which is an amazing, amazing achievement. We got to the bottom of that, and then now some guy profits off of it with a 6-figure advance. Great. But like, you're right. It is all about technology always. And if you had a great idea for a show, let's say it's anything you see on TV that isn't adapted from a book, and you had that idea, and you're like, well, I want to pitch this, I want to cast it, I want to make it, I want to edit it, and then I want to stream it. I'm like, cool, that might be like a 6-month to 6-year process. Awesome. It's like, or I could just ramble off this idea on Twitter and get like maybe 50 likes or 5,000 likes, right? And maybe that'll reach more people than the show.
Yeah, that's possible. I also think this idea of main character syndrome is that you are still supplying content for the most part for whoever owns these platforms. It's kind of it's an odd dynamic where you are just tweeting for clout, and we can excuse it in other ways. Well, I'm doing that to get my name up, and because I want people to see my work, I want people to know who I am, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, growing up, you're doing little, I don't know, typing things up, writing them on a computer, giving it to your friends. You're sending out some emails, like an email group.
I used to Xerox pages and staple them together.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying you could still do that project, but now there's this huge, worldwide audience of people who would actually be exposed to it. But for the most part, you're just feeding this content machine that Jack was running, or that's part of the Facebook empire, and you're just there dutifully working for them, kind of.
The Gen X idea of sticking it to the man just doesn't quite have the same meaning anymore. It's just like, yeah, let me criticize Jack on Twitter. I'm like, ooh, like that got a lot of likes on Twitter.
I mean, it is kind of crazy, and we tweet too. I'm not even knocking people who do it. We do it. Of course we do. Yeah. But just like everyone leaping on there to like create content for Twitter, just all day, millions and millions of people, little monkeys on their keyboards, just churning out content for Jack.
It's wild, and how many times we just use Netflix as like a word, an adjective to describe something, or even a verb, and I'm like, oh, this is a very profitable company that's publicly traded, like the idea of subversion is really vague at this point. I mean, if it even exists. But
I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking with someone who is from Paris, and they're attuned to things that are cool in that city and elsewhere. Yeah. And they were like, you should, look into these young kids. They're early 20s. They're not using smartphones. I'm like,
oh yeah, I remember that.
Ooh, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. They're not using Google Maps. They're just using their phones for texting, and that's it. You're like, incredible. Oh, you mean like what everybody did? Up until 15 years ago, you mean? Yeah. Or whatever.
But
I like that they're doing it, and they're departing from, the consensus or the mainstream in that way. This little act of rebellion, but it's also kind of along the lines of, but how rebellious is that? I don't know. maybe it is really rebellious.
I think it is. They don't remember life before this. Like, I always think that, I love looking at my friends' kids on social media. But, like, there's going to be a time where one of these kids is going to grow up and make a splash and be like, yo, I did not, like, consent to, like, having my image and having my handle be established by my parents. Like, I no longer get along with my parents. There has to be a precedent for, like, authorship here, right? Because it sets forth my entire digital life, whatever, Web 7 by the time that happens. But it's an interesting thought. I can't imagine, like, not growing up with, like soda or like pizza everywhere. And like, there's shit my parents didn't have. They're like, TV. No one has a TV. No one has like HBO. And I'm like, well, my rich friends down the block do. And it's
You're like, and Real Sex 7 is on.
Tales from the Crypt, man. I was just like, ooh, the show's sick. The Crypt Keeper's sick. Knicks fan. What can I say? I love that stuff.
I've got some bad news for you, Andrew.
What's up?
You're concerned about a world without pizza? Well, welcome to it. It's time to do a little food forecasting. 2022 food forecasting.
It is a new year, new rules. Let's do this.
All right. Let's have a little contest, and at the end of the year, we can revisit and see who was right.
Okay.
Let's go back and forth. We're going to predict what foods are going to be popular this coming year. How will America eat? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to start out. I have a little list here. Okay. I'm not going to get too in depth. Just going to name it. But I think this is going to be big this year. I think this will be big. Okay. I think laksa, Laksa. I think that's going to be big. It's a slurpable noodle soup. It's served across parts of Southeast Asia. I think that's going to be big in 2022. Keep an eye out for laksa.
Wow. I counter you with spaghetti sauce. It's a reduced tomatoes into a gravy, and you can buy it canned. You can make it fresh. I think it's going to be huge. Next.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay, another one that I think is going to catch on. Kelp.
Oh, wow.
Seaweed.
Woo.
Has a stand-up nutritional profile, removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, nitrogen from the ocean. I think it's going to move beyond dashi and the menus of high-end restaurants into everyday food, like salsa, for example.
Wow. All right. Well, I counter you with sandwiches. I think they're versatile. They kind of cross every cultural boundary. They can be open-faced. They can have two pieces. You can even put a third slice of bread in there. Sandwiches are going to have a huge moment in 2022.
I'm going to push back a little. I just don't think we're going to see sandwiches much. I think sandwiches are kind of over, a little blasé. Passe is what I'm looking for. I'm thinking more along the lines of hibiscus.
No.
It adds like a crimson hue and tart, earthy flavor to everything from cocktails and sodas to crudos and yogurt.
Wow. Well,
I don't think you can top that. I don't think you can top hibiscus. I think I've taken the bull by its horns here.
I thought I had you until hibiscus because I was going to say chocolate. It comes in a.
Fuck!
It comes in. You can have it hot as a drink. You can have it in a candy bar. You can have it baked into your treats that can be consumed for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I thought I had it, but hibiscus. Woo! You got me there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had chocolate on my list too. That's a good one. I think chocolate's going to be huge. Okay, my final one.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Robusta, the coffee bean. The third wave movement was built on Arabica, the world's most popular coffee. But climate change is threatening production and driving prices up.
Wow.
Says Kira Nielsen, who tracks food and drinks for WGSN, a consumer forecasting and consulting firm. So Robusta, I think that's going to be really popping off in 2022.
Jeez, I'm taking an L. I'm going to be 0 for 4 because I was going to say ice water. You sit down to a restaurant, you peruse the menu. What's better before you even think about what you want to have a nice cup of chilled water to cleanse your palate? But Robusta.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I mean, ice water initially strikes me as being like really 2011. But I get the cyclical nature of food trends, so I think that's a good one. Yeah. You might have gotten me there.
Yeah.
Other things you should look out for. I think cake is going to be popular, and ice cream is something you'll see on a lot of menus.
All right, why are we doing this bit? Who are we roasting here?
Well, I was reading stuff from the New York Times. Trend forecasting for food that how Americans are going to be eating.
Yeah.
This is how Americans are going to eat. Americans are going to eat a bunch of yuzu. No disrespect to Yuzu Nation.
This is like when people thought every team was going to have a Draymond Green. It's like, oh, this just genius basketball player who's undersized, who can guard 5 positions. That's going to be the trend. I'm like, cool. This list is awesome. It was good clickbait for a few nights, right? Because there was swift condemnation from Twitter.
I mean, even though it's from a few days ago, I had just posted the graph about sugar and swice.
What's Swice?
Mashups like swicey and swalty.
Sounds like a
will
rapper.
join the
that I would love.
linguistic.
Little Swicey.
Oh, Big
Amazing.
Swalty. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, just like he just released a 30-minute track. You gotta hear.
Are they
RX
from Ray
Swicey.
Shrummered?
Right. Oh my God, where has he been? Well, yeah. So
well,
when did
anyway,
you
those
post-
words are going to join the linguistic mania that brought us unfortunate nicknames like charcut and say sal, which is charcuterie and Caesar salad, that is. The new phraseology reflects an even wider embrace of flavor fusions that marry savory spices and heat with sweetness. Nene, a South Korean-based fried chicken chain that has just started moving to North America, has even named a sauce spicy. What are these words?
Awesome.
Its flavor profile mirrors what would happen if gochujang and ketchup had a baby. I was gonna say that.
I can imagine this editor being pitched this story. It's like, yes, go on. And it's like, do you let your writer get roasted? It's like, well, you might get famous too. So like this might propel you into superstardom. Like you're
Yeah,
Susan Orlean, right? Like you've had a great career as a writer. It's been adapted to film. You are a famous person in small circles. And then you get drunk one night and fire off a bunch of tweets. Now you're a Twitter celebrity.
Look, I don't mind some good, clickbait. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
But this is just so well done.
It's excellent, man.
Like flavor of the year. Here comes the brand new flavor, and it's hibiscus. But the opening line of the flavor of the year, the brand new flavor in your year.
Yeah.
Yuzu has its fans, but the even money is on hibiscus. Yeah, if you want to make a vig,
America,
betting on hibiscus, like
get ready for
the
fish
smart
sauce.
money,
Yeah.
the smart fucking money out there is on hibiscus.
the food world has lost its damn mind during the coronavirus, man. And
Not like these suckers who are putting their hard-earned guapola on yuzu like a clown.
Well, think about the food world not being able to do what it's good at, which is make food. Because for the last 2 years, the food universe has been trying to create content to make us like think about food and think about trends. And I watch all these like super famous, amazing chefs go on social media just like bricking. Just like, I'd like to thank my amazing squad. I'm like, oh shit. Oh, it's like, you know what is cool? Microwaves. Don't underestimate the microwave. I'm like, yo, this is tough going, man. If you're a basketball player and you can't play basketball, like, what? Like, these are geniuses in their field that have been trying to flex on it in a different world that has been very entertaining, I think. You know what I'm talking about.
You ready for the final thing here in this food forecasting article? The vibe of the year.
Oh, I'm going to love it.
Kindness and patience are going to be in. They didn't say the smart money's on that.
Kindness and patience. I'm fucking into that, man. So it's whoever isn't a fuckboy, which is like 0.5% of the population of men are going to be kind and patient. It's in.
Well,
It's in.
look, here in Swag City, there's a newfound emphasis on kindness and understanding.
If the hibiscus says swagger, then this list has swag.
Here's the quote. As Jennifer Ziegler, the associate director of food and drink at the research firm Mintel put it, it's a great name, we've all gone through this stressful, anxious couple of years, and there's that willingness to have some empathy and understanding. Really? Because I've been seeing a lot of videos from airplanes.
Yeah.
And like there's some empathy and understanding up there. Maybe.
Listen, if you're a net zero player,
seem
you're the same guy
like
on the same team. No one's gonna boo you. No one's gonna ask you to be traded. How many Buddy Hields are there in the world? I mean, empathy is here, Ben. It is here.
It's in the joy of basketball. That's where you find it.
That's right. Did the forecasting of the colors of the year come true? Remember we talked about gray and yellow being declared the colors of 2021. Did that ever happen?
But you always declare your color of the year. You rarely predict one. Right? I feel like you've been like last year's color, gray. All right, I guess it was. I don't know that you've ever predicted one. Do you have a color prediction for 2022? Because if so, I don't even know if you should. We'll just bleep it. You can make all the merch that color.
All right, it's gonna blow minds. The color is the color of white. You better bleep that out because that is information that I do not give out willy nilly.
Yeah. Yep. And it goes perfectly with Christianity.
That's right.
Empathy. Compassion, and just. You are a little angel.
Plain white tees, man.
I get it.
Yep. I'm now a Christian man, 5'2", draped in white.
Just like Jesus.
That's right. Just like Fat Joe in 1994.
Oh, Fat Joe, the mayor of Swag City.
Isn't it funny how like MSG has been pushing Fat Joe and Jadakiss as kind of like the real swagger mayors of New York City? We know it's Billy Joel from New Jersey. Let's not pretend.
All right. Yes, of course. He's the king of Jersey. I wanted to, or is it Long Island?
Billy Joel?
Did he move out to Long Island?
Now you got me shook. Is Billy Joel a Long Island dude or a New Jersey dude? Billy Joel is New Jersey, right?
No, but wasn't he the guy? Wasn't he consistently getting in trouble for like drunk driving in Long Island?
You got me shook. I think you could be right. This
He's born
is
in
not
New York City.
Of course, he was born in New York City. Is Billy Joel from New York City? Grew up in Long Island. Oh, wow! Your Billy Joel game is tight.
Yeah, that sounds like you were thinking Bon Jovi, and it came out Billy Joel.
I'm always thinking Bon Jovi.
I know you are. I know. That's why I don't even hold this against you. This serious miscue. I'm not bleeping it. I'm sorry. It's not getting bleeps.
I'm not getting
the color white.
You gotta bleep that again, man. Come on.
Fuck. So this is what I wanted to talk about. The distinctive energy of the Knicks, this Fat Joe, this Jadakiss aesthetic. And there was a little video with a new song by an artist that I did not recognize, who said something like "Bing bong, we're coming through with our Timbs on." Yeah. It's like, this is exactly what we're talking about. What is it though? Who are these artists? What's the era that's being emulated? Because I was trying to think of what era in New York City rap this was, and it kind of isn't one.
Are you talking about the dead ball era of rapping in New York? Was it like the mid-aughts? Are they talking post, like Wu-Tang?
Well, that's what I mean, right? Like, this style of rap was never really the most popular style of rap in New York. I guess you could say this is like, it's spiritually Black Moon or like Smith and Wesson or something like that. Wow. But that's also not really what it sounds like, though. Right? It's not. It doesn't really sound like boot camp. Like, there's that aesthetic there. It's not Tribe Called Quest. It's not early 90s, because early 90s was fast and dancey. It's not Wu-Tang, really, because it doesn't sound like Wu-Tang. And then after Wu-Tang, then you're getting into Biggie, Jay-Z. What is the specific Tim's, Bing Bong, Jadakiss, Fat Joe? It's not even Fat Joe's career. It's not even Jadakiss's career, really.
I mean, it kind of reminded me when I was working in the biz, like during the Total Request Live era, and like there was a lot of Red Man happening. It was right. It was like a cloud of stuff happening, but no one really stepped out and like I don't know. It is. It was like that big record label push to sign every single rapper in New York City. It kind of came right after the big label push to sign every indie band out there, and there was like kind of a content grab, and all these rappers were styled the same way, right? Like basically undercover cops, Timberlands, Yankees hats, you know, red Yankees jerseys with baseball bats. Like it was, I felt like it was a way to cash in on a TV show, Total Request Live, and it made a lot of people rich, but not everybody.
Yeah, it does feel like this specific energy is kind of Uncle Murder, Saigon, Red Cafe. No, that's
I've
kind
not
of what
thought
it is,
about these names in a while, but
because
yeah.
it's not actually 90s rap.
Right.
It's the idea of 90s rap, but it doesn't sound like 90s rap. It's not what 90s rap wasn't like Bing Bong. Come through my
No.
Tim's on. Maybe it was a little bit like the Bushwhackers or some shit.
Bushwhackers. I mean, yeah, there's a hardness implied with Bing Bong bullshit that like makes me think of more of the Cocoa Brothers than like Hype Williams, right? There's like a fake realness to it that wasn't a part of what I was talking about with charting rap. Because Puffy, Bing Bong is not a tip of the cap to Puffy. It's a tip of the cap to the Boot Camp clique, right?
I don't even know what it's the tip of the hat to at all.
Like, who does it appeal to other than the people who were involved?
I don't know. I'm just trying to get a. Are we talking 2003? Is that what?
That's what I was
is
thinking.
Bing Bong channeling 2003?
That's what I was thinking. Like Redman, Method Man, the Locks.
Who's the guy from the Lower East Side who had the song called like the New New York or whatever it was called? It's that same era.
Maybe so. I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, Bing Bong had a quick life, and it's sad because the Knicks started losing games, and we didn't get enough jokes out of it. But there was a feeling that it would be a short-lived kind of phenomenon because it was a little too real hip hop, right?
Yeah, I'm. You know, man, I'm just gonna go with the guy I'm thinking of, True Life. You remember him?
Barely.
Yeah, it's that era.
Barely. Yeah. So
True
that's
Life.
who you're thinking of. So Bing Bong.
True Life from the
same.
yes, True Life from the Lower. One of a local lad.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Knicks' energy as Red Cafe. I'm very comfortable with that statement.
And we say this because, you know, the MSG is really pushing Jadakiss onto us. And why wouldn't they? Like, that famous versus battle happened in their building. And the two people to walk out of that victorious were Fat Joe and Jada. And they've been really pushing them.
What if they got rid of the Pensy? They should turn that into the Red Cafe.
Incredible idea. What is going to go into the Pensy, which was a food court attached to MSG named after Penn Station, which is underground? Right there.
I'm just glad we sorted this out, man. Knicks'
Yeah.
energy is Red Cafe and Uncle Murder.
Is it? Or
No,
I'm
it's-
crazy. It's Trey Anastasio. It is Elton John. That's the real energy.
It's Arcade Fire.
Yo, doesn't Elton John hold the record for most performances in MSG? And those are all W's, right?
Yeah,
got
every
his-
one of them. He's undefeated.
He's undefeated. He's got his name in the rafters. Trey Anastasio rules that company. There was a conspiracy theory that thought that the Knicks were kind of tanking games, so they wouldn't have to play during times that Trey Anastasio would want to perform. It was confusing. The singer from Fish.
I don't believe it, but I know that people were talking about that.
Yeah, I like it. It checks out to me.
Well, we've neatly segued to basketball here at the 55-minute mark.
Nice.
You mentioned the grief that Tobias Harris has been getting. We'll just briefly touch on that and move on. The brief grief. Tobias Harris kind of struggled this year for Philly. He's not shot particularly well. His numbers are down kind of across the board from last season. And he's become the scapegoat along with Doc Rivers because the typical scapegoat is not there. So it's kind of scapegoat hunters have to look around the room a little more. It's not Ben Simmons. Who else can it be? Oh, I guess it's Tobias Harris. I guess it's Doc Rivers. I guess it's Matisse Thybulle's outside shooting. The scapegoat gods have spoken. Tobias, you're on the hot seat.
Yep.
But last night, he's been struggling lately. And last night he hit a jumper, and you saw him kind of mouth the crowd, like, don't fucking clap, don't fucking clap.
Similar to
I saw
Joel
some people
Embiid's hush. Yeah.
Yep, Embiid hushed the crowd and then publicly flirted with going to Miami.
Yeah.
Al Horford, I believe, also hushed the crowd.
Yeah.
Danny Green at a Philadelphia game. Danny Green had said the crowd was too hard on Ben Simmons and the players, and then Ben Simmons isn't playing. So we've pretty much that's a full starting lineup right there.
Yeah. Tobias Harris has not had a good season, but the last two seasons have been kind of better for him in terms of his career averages. His first season in Philly when he was 26 in 2019, he got traded midseason, so that was 27 games. He's better this season than that season, and he did not get this sort of grief. This is a learned behavior, right?
Yeah, someone's got to be blamed.
Yeah.
It can't just be that the team isn't mega talented. It's got to be Tobias is bad. Man, Tobias Harris has been the same player forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
Like him last year being he should make the All-Star team. He was scoring better.
He was very
He's
good
the same guy.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
good. He's a good player. He's the same guy, man. He plays the same way. He's got the same weaknesses, the same strengths. He is an utterly predictable player.
Mm-hmm.
I looked into his numbers a bit from this season to see what was going on, and for the most part, he's getting to the line more than normal. That's a good thing. Mm-hmm. He just is not able to get wide open threes, which he really needs because of his reluctance to shoot from the perimeter. He needs like an open fucking three, and he's not getting those without Ben Simmons out there. Mm-hmm. He's not getting quick little dump ins into the post because he typically now has bigger defenders on him and longer defenders. Mm-hmm. And he's also not getting out in transition because the team doesn't really run without Simmons, and they're, at least last time I checked, 29th in pace. So when you take away easy buckets in transition, you take away mismatches in the post, and you take away wide open threes, he just has to work for everything more. Like his struggles this year, while he's been on the court with Embiid, like exactly mirror his struggles with Embiid over the course of their, 3 years together, 3.5 years together when Simmons is off the court. So like completely predictable. Like leave the guy alone.
Yeah.
Just stop, man. Stop blaming Tobias Harris. This is exactly what he was always going to do, considering the circumstances.
I mean, a few years ago, the hot button issue on NBA Twitter was, does math have a place in this game? Is math ruining this game? And we've kind of graduated from that because clearly it has a place, not the whole room, but it has a zone in this world. But now we've moved into like effort and intent, and Kobe's death kind of influenced this. Like so many stories about Iverson being like, he dropped me off at the club, and I was like, where are you going? Like, the gym? It's like, maybe he should have been going to the lab and getting better at rapping, not his true passion. I don't know. But like, we talk about effort so much these days as sort of a refutation of like the arguments about math, because that was an L for people who said math had no place in this game. Of course it has a place in this game. It has a place in the world, and the game is just a reflection of the world. But to get out of that, you just can talk about does Tobias want it enough? Does he have enough courage to succeed in this environment? And what would we do if we had Tobias Harris's height and talent and we weren't 5'2", shrinking every year? But like, to your point, Tobias has been this guy, and there's tangible things as to why he isn't as good as he was last year. He's missing an apex creator on the court, and the Sixers are still missing an apex creator on the court. I don't know what will satisfy a certain fan base, and I don't even want to say the Sixers, because the Knicks fan base are kind of doing this to Julius Randle, which to me is super dull. It's not an interesting conversation. But I don't know if, like, does Kings fans do this to De'Aaron Fox? Like, does this exist in every fan base? Do Utah Jazz fans do this to Joe Ingles?
I can't tell because I'm not that in touch with what other fan bases do, but it feels like we see that with Randall, and we see it with Tobias and other Sixers. I think most fan bases probably do the same thing, and they're just kind of these talking points that migrate around, and you'll see them pick up steam and then become part of the kind of like conventional wisdom around a team,
Right.
and you can see it traced from like, oh, someone said this on Twitter, and then it gets repeated, and all of a sudden you just hear it over and over and over. And I think part of that is because it's just what you want. It sounds weird, but okay, Tobias Harris is struggling. He's not scoring as well as last year. What do you want? I want him to score better. I want him to be a better player.
Right.
Okay, how should he go about doing that?
Right.
Well, I don't know. He should make more shots then.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what kind of gets me a little bummed out, is when there's just unfettered rage towards a player saying, "I want you to be better at basketball." Okay, I want you to be better at being a fan.
I walk around my neighborhood, and it's changed so much, right? And now it's like mostly bonobos and people who I don't identify with, like, necessarily with their ethos. They're not into hokas. They're not into, weird tertiary HBO shows, whatever. They're just, I don't relate to them. And I used to think like, well, my neighborhood's changing. And I'm like, oh, it's their neighborhood. This belongs to them. I'm the interloper here. And that's how I feel in the NBA. It's just like, oh, I'm the one who's wrong here because this is how people watch the game. And you get mad at something you can identify, which is usually points per game. Averaging, what is your average points per game? And if you read the book The Joy of Basketball, we kind of like maybe challenge the idea of conventional metrics as to describe how good a player is or how interesting or how they contribute to what you see in a game. And I just cannot relate to people just looking at missed shots and judging how much someone cares about playing the game that they spent their whole lives playing. And Tobias Harris is cold. Julius Randle is cold. He is having a disappointing season. His shooting
I
numbers are all down.
I just can't handle the idea that these guys aren't playing hard.
You have to assume they're playing their hardest. It's just
To get to this level
yeah, exactly.
is insane. It's
Yeah.
insane. They are competitive psychos. Like, they're going on the court playing this game that they are better at than anyone you've ever seen in your life, like outside of the NBA.
Yeah.
They're among the best 350 basketball players on the fucking planet.
Yeah.
This is their livelihood. There are millions of dollars at stake, their reputation, all this stuff. They're going out in front of a national TV audience and like 20,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever it is, in the stands yelling. And you think they're not trying?
That's weird.
They're not working hard. They're just out there bullshitting around. Like, come on, man.
And I yeah.
I think there are times when a team might get spanked, and then they're like mentally cashed out. Like, all right, we got another game tomorrow. Let's just call this one a wrap.
Yeah.
I think that would happen. That's natural. But the idea that like Julius Randle is lazy, get out of here.
Get
No,
outta
he's
here.
not.
Yeah.
We just saw him lead the league in minutes.
Yes, and he's second. He's in safety protocols, and he's still I believe,
Lazily.
second.
Lazily second in the league in minutes.
And like I I kind of put my mind where that criticism is. And there's certain plays that Julius Randle loses his guys confused and just is standing there and some guy rolls by him for a layup. And that may look lazy, but this happened when Amari Stoudemire got to New York and he was an MVP candidate one year and then fell off a cliff and people accused him of not trying because we'd seen him good in the orange and blue. But I think I'm with you. Like, to say someone's physical activity is indicative of how hard they try is like a misconstruction. And like Julius Randle loses some energy. Remember that Tom Thibodeau's criticism is he burns out his stars. Julius Randle led the league in minutes, and his usage was a little insane. He is everything to the Knicks. He's the release valve. He's the facilitator. He is the gravity player. He does every single thing. He's the only starter on the Knicks on another team. Bonafide. Like, of course, Quickly might start on a team, but there's no clear asset here, or there's no clear starter on the Knicks aside from him. So, like, to say he doesn't try is fair, but I just have a different definition of trying. And I think these players are brilliant physically and mentally. And I think Julius Randle has a bit of a world view. He's been through a lot as a player, being traded a lot, being doubted a lot, and being a second-team All-NBA player. And sometimes if I want to live in his head when he misses a play, I'm like, he's either exhausted or just like saving himself or saying like, well, fuck that play. That's a broken play. I got to save myself. Like, this is all reasonably classified as effort to me.
Well, I'm going to say this as gently as possible. I think there are large segments of fan bases who are not only governed by emotions, but watch basketball through an emotional prism.
Just cool.
Like, they're not necessarily watching the game knowing what's happening on the court in intimate detail as much as how they feel about what they're seeing. Randall's playing bad. That makes me feel bad. That makes me angry at Randall for making me feel bad. Therefore, like, he's doing something wrong. Versus saying, well, what's the issue here? Is he just off on, the shots that he was making last season? Is that just something that's you're going to have to live with? Is there a way to get him better shots? Are they putting the right people around him?
Did they change the rules?
Like what are other issues at play here that make him play poorly instead of saying, I'm mad at him? Like, what's happening here that created the situation? And, in the case of Tobias that we just talked about, we don't even need to revisit him. I pointed out some issues that have caused him to play worse, which are less transition points, less easy buckets on duck-ins, and less wide-open threes. Those have all played a role in deteriorating his shot quality.
Right.
And as a result, he has to work a lot harder to get the rest of his points. So there you go. That's reasons, and several reasons, that Tobias Harris is struggling. It's not because he doesn't want to play better, but he can't just naturally conjure wide-open threes and transition points. He can't do that by himself. So,
Yes.
Be mad at someone else.
Right. But I get this. I guess my point is, like, maybe we live in the world of sports just making people mad. And that is
Sure.
more normal than not. Like, I always want to see the sausage get made. I never understood why that was a thing. Like, you don't want to see that get made. I'm like, well, if I get frustrated with Amari Stoudemire, I'd like to listen to somebody who would tell me why this is happening, right? I don't know. I do have the solution for the Sixers, though. And all Daryl Morey has to do is listen to me, which is you trade Tobias Harris for Buddy Hield, and then you trade Ben Simmons for Buddy Hield. And then if you can get Buddy Hield from Matisse Thybulle, you might be rolling.
Imagine Joe with 3 Hields.
All the Hields and Joel Embiid. What?
Maury, heal thyself.
Are there enough Hields? Yes.
Speaking of healing, your man Klay Thompson is almost back. Rumored to be returning
I do love
this
Klay.
coming weekend.
I love Klay Thompson. I'm not going to lie. He is one of my favorite players before he tragically got injured seriously twice in 2 years. This is going to sound weird, but I think the Warriors are close to perfect right now. Obviously, they don't have the squad they did in their championship run with KD, but as their team looks now, I think this team is perfect. So I think the return of Clay is going to be amazing emotionally, and he's going to hit some threes, and everyone's going to go nuts. But he's going to hurt them a lot defensively, not because he's not a great defender. It's because he's coming off very serious injuries, and you would assume his lateral movement's going to be a tick slow.
I guess I'm still acclimating to like the lack of super teams in the current NBA.
What?
I know I know Brooklyn has
Emmanuel Quickly erasure.
No, I know Brooklyn has, 3 guys who are among the best offensive players in history. Like, they're not lacking in that regard, but we haven't seen them really all play together much at all over 2 years, or actually over 3. But and not this year at all. But I look at these teams who are, the Bulls, Golden State, Phoenix, Utah, Milwaukee, Miami, Memphis. Like, they're good. They're good teams. They just don't feel anywhere near the caliber of, like, the Warriors. Obviously, the Hamptons 5. That goes without saying. But also, even that year, Toronto with the team that they had that ended up winning, the Sixers with Jimmy, Ben, and Joe. I look at these teams. Phoenix is great. Golden State's great. They have the 2 best records in the league, 29-7, 28-8. They're fantastic teams, and I just don't view them as being like actual title-winning teams. They're probably will be, but I mean, in the context of the kind of teams we've seen, whether it was the Warriors, whether it was Heat, whether it was Cleveland with Love, Kyrie, and LeBron, there's just something missing, and that doesn't mean they're not going to win a title. But I look at them like, these guys, this Golden State team, like, they're good. They're good. Phoenix, polished, play defense. Chris Paul's a genius. Devin Booker's a movable vat. But I look at the rest of that team like, these guys, this is a fucking team that's going to win a title. Yeah. I find it's an oddly jarring year in that way.
And I hear you. And I do think a player like Mikal Bridges is their second best player and incredible. I do love the landscape of the league right now. And to your point, aren't we just talking about personnel? Because if there's a top tier of player,
I'm totally talking about personnel. Yes.
And there's 15 of those guys. And as soon as you take Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, and Kyrie Irving off the table, that's 3 less guys.
Simmons too?
Simmons. That's 4 less guys in that top tier, and that changes the entire thing we're looking at, right? Because if you spread those 4 guys around, you would have at least 2 of your super teams.
Well, right. If you had Ben and Joe, the Sixers would probably be the favorite to win the title.
I agree.
If the Clippers had Kawhi along with PG, they would be a far more formidable team.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that's a good point that you make. And if Kyrie was playing all season alongside Harden and Durant, they might be the best team in basketball. Like, all these make sense. And we know Milwaukee's good. They've won a title. So I think you make a really good point that there are just some odd teams that are missing that component that would make them feel like a legitimate super team. That, I mean, I don't think Philly's a super team with them, but like a great team, a real contender. 2 All-Stars. So that's that point taken. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be LA, right? LA Lakers were supposed to be that super team, but the tide
has been hurt.
Yeah, and the tide has changed on Westbrook, and Westbrook is having a tough time, but he's still great, and like, it switches really fast. But I agree. Like, what are the Utah Jazz? Like, what is that team? Are they actually going to be in the mix at the end? Because no one actually believes it, right? Like, on paper, totally. They're dominant again, well coached, really great players. Checks all the boxes. Check all the boxes. But in our hearts, like, do we believe they're gonna just waltz into the finals?
Jazz are weird because, on one hand, even when they've had great records, there's been this lack of trust from the public. People don't believe in the Jazz. And, even when you're the best team in basketball, the odds are that you're not going to win the title if you are not, the Heat with LeBron. And even they didn't win it every year. They lost twice in the finals.
Sure.
But you look at a team like Utah and you say, like, I just don't believe in this team. Gobert is a stiff. Donovan Mitchell's a chuck.
The Mormons. Yeah, it's Utah.
That they take a lot of threes. That's going to dry up in the playoffs. There's a very compelling and easy argument to say, like, they're kind of a paper tiger. And I don't even think Jazz fans really believe in them this year in the way they have in the past, because this is all very familiar. So it's just a kind of self-protection. Like, all right, we're good. We're playing well. I'm not going to get my hopes up. These are the kind of things that make me say, God damn it, the Jazz are going to win it this year.
Royce O'Neal's good, man.
Just all these indicators are kind of superficial. Where people are like, I don't believe in them. We've seen this before. I'm like, but this is what the Bucks did. This is how the Bucks won.
I know, but the Bucks got
screwed around, playing well for year after year after year, amassing great records, being elite on offense, elite on defense, and everyone kind of wrote them off, and then they just kind of snuck through and won a fucking chip.
They snuck through for sure, and they won all the games they were supposed to win. So there's no shame in that game. But they had an easier path to the finals. I don't think the Hawks were a problem for them, but. Like, this is an issue of perception, right? Because Rudy Gobert is an amazing basketball player. But we want, I want to say, well, that type of player is old-fashioned. And he is the guy who was irresponsible and touched all those microphones. Like, he can't be a great player on a championship team. And then you look at him
Rudy,
play.
why aren't you washing your wine glasses?
Yeah. He's
covered
goofy.
with COVID.
No one likes him really, and he's French. All these, all your biases kind of play in. My biases, and you look at him play, and then you look at his numbers, and you're like, oh shit, we're talking about like a top 7 player, right? Old fashioned, but
he's great.
Is what he is.
He basically leads the NBA in field goal percentage and is the apex rim protector in a league when most big men have primarily that function. So he's really valuable on offense in a modest amount. He gets a lot of offensive rebounds too. And, the contemporary role of a center is protecting the rim, and he's the best of them. I think Joe is someone that you can't really, Embiid is someone that you can't get off the court by going small. He's better in terms of mobility on the perimeter. But I think Gobert is the best, first quarter to fourth quarter rim protector in the league. He just makes scoring in the paint really annoying.
Is he solvable, like they say? The knock on him is if you go small against him, let's say with a healthy Warriors team, you can just dissect the well-coached and well-formulated Jazz. But, get to the playoffs, and if you go small, you can probably take a few games off of them, and that would be the series. Do you believe in that?
I mean, we've seen it happen.
Yeah.
That's why, I'm not even get into Ben Simmons' chat, but that's why, to me, guys like Simmons and Draymond might ultimately be better defenders because they don't have that one issue where they'll be taken off the court by a team that goes small.
Yeah.
They have the versatility to guard guys on the perimeter. But yeah, I mean, Gobert's obviously a really, really valuable player. If you look at his plus minus, it smokes everybody on that team. It's plus 11 when he's on the court. They're plus 2 when Mitchell's on the floor versus when he's off. Gobert is just their real difference maker. And again, this is just this Gen X contrarian streak. I'm like, everyone's counting these guys out. They don't like Gobert because he's a big French doofus. Donovan Mitchell's a little cop. I'm like, Jackasses are going to win a title, aren't they?
Is this just like PTSD from your Bucks taking it all last year?
Totally could be.
It could be, man. I feel the same way. I'm just like, this team is actually more interesting to me than the Bucks, and the Bucks got there. If we just go down the roster, like Mitchell to me is not an exceptional player, but a great all-star. Lock him in.
Really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Gobert's leading the league in field goal percentage and rebounds, while being amongst the league leaders in blocks and also being the best rim protector. That's a hell of a year, man.
And this is confusing, right? Because I think Gobert might be an exceptional defender, like jaw-dropping. But he's no Draymond Green. And Draymond Green doesn't have these statistical peaks, you know? But I think we're witnessing the best defensive player of all time rejuvenated, and maybe he'd been saving it for a few years, but he's playing in a way that makes me think like we'll be talking about what he is doing now for a long time. And Rudy Gobert, even though he has all these statistical accolades, is still not the defender Draymond Green is. If we want to do, apples to apples kind of thing, this team can't beat the Warriors.
That's reasonable. Just going back to Klay returning, I'm not a huge fan of Klay Thompson. I think he's very valuable. Mm-hmm. I'm only talking about in a basketball sense. He seems like a lovely guy.
I'm a fan.
I don't think he's like a genuine superstar. I think he is the pinnacle of 3-and-D, where he's a solid on-ball defender who doesn't do a ton else, and a shooter that commands an intense amount of gravity, and there just aren't many guys who can do that. Mm-hmm. Like, how many guys are actually good at both 3 and D? And there aren't many.
Yeah.
Like Covington was one who, in his best years, was all NBA defensively while also knocking down a lot of threes. Mm-hmm. But Klay just consistently being a shooter that commands respect and a very good on-ball defender. There just aren't that many of those dudes around there. That's why someone like Jay Crowder, who is not as good at either thing, is still such a valuable contributor.
Mm-hmm. And another minor point with Klay is it's been a while since he's played, and the league has changed, and Kerr had made like a little slight adjustment this year that I was reading about. Like, he's putting like a fifth defender in a zone, cheating towards the basket. And I know that sounds simple, but like not many teams do that. And the person I was reading was saying like, this is an action that happens immediately when the player with the ball makes a move. The Warriors have just been setting up that way, cutting off lanes. And I'm like, oh, I don't know Klay Thompson in this defense because it's changed in the 2 years that he's been hurt. So I'm really curious to see how Kerr maybe hides him or uses him in 2022. I'm quite a fan, but I agree with you. He's not Steph Curry. He's not Draymond Green, but he's a deadly player, man. Like, he's a pain in the ass.
Well, one thing I'm interested in seeing from a sports science perspective is we seem to have made progress, and part of it is not rushing guys back, but in dealing with Achilles injuries. KD has been outrageous since coming back, and he's not that young. And historically speaking, whether it was Kobe or Chauncey Billups or Elton Brand, Dominique Wilkins, guys were not long for the league after having an Achilles injury. Boogie Cousins, it just happened. Rudy Gay was never the same guy. And Durant is so unusual of a player and so uniquely great. But it is still really promising to see someone come back and not seem as if they've lost a step. KD seems every bit as good as he was. And maybe it's just because he took off for longer than the average guy does. So I guess I'm optimistic about Klay in terms of him having a lot of time to recuperate in a way that may not have been the case, a decade ago. But still, a bad knee injury and an Achilles is just extremely challenging to overcome. You know, in the past, again, KD refutes a lot of this, but in the past, you'd see pretty significant declines in guys shooting, which is weird because you'd think that's something that they are able to do while they're out. Mm-hmm. But it's just something about the mechanics of the body and, you know, being able to use your legs in that same way at the NBA level that has created an issue like over and over and over for guys after Achilles. But again, I'm just hoping Durant is ushering in a new era where guys take as much time they need and come back and are, you know, indistinguishable, hopefully, from what they were before.
And there's a point also that Durant has nothing to prove. He's Kevin fucking Durant. So even in a murky contract situation, he has the luxury of being like, I could play, but I'm going to sit this year out because he's that good. When you're just a tick or a few ticks worse as a Rudy Gay, who's very good, and Boogie Cousins, who is really good, you don't have that luxury. Like, you kind of got to go out there and fight. Klay Thompson has that luxury because he's won so many championships. I don't think he would behave the same way if he didn't. I think he'd maybe rush it a bit more, maybe. KD's unique, right, in that sense.
I mean, both of them have not only their like professional reputation, but they also had incredible financial security.
Right.
You know, Clay's hasn't missed a dime. He's not scrambling to get a new contract. KD signed that contract while he had an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
So,
because he's that good.
Again, a totally different dynamic from someone like Boogie Cousins, who was going into off season where he was going to be a free agent, and then lost out on millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And then just trying to figure out, you know, how to get back on the court and earn a new contract.
Yeah.
And then we saw him, you know, he went to the Warriors and he went to the Lakers and he bounced around. He never did get that big deal that was surely awaiting him that summer.
Yeah, and we see players like Nerlens Noel going out on the court. We saw this at the Garden, and I'm like, he's not healthy. Like, he's limping and rubbing his knee. Like, what's he doing playing? So yeah, it totally depends, and I think we're veering on a conversation of like whether teams or players are doing this the right or wrong way, and it makes me think of Dame Lillard and
I'm sorry, what? Oh man, are you losing the right way over there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, can you not want it the right way?
I mean, on one hand, I get what he's saying, obviously.
Totally.
But also, what? You just went out there and got rocked. Bron put up like a 50 spot.
Yeah.
You just put up like 17 on 19 shots or something. Got pummeled. And you're like, look at those chumps. Those losers over there celebrating their 30-point win.
I love it.
A tainted victory. You hear me?
They're winning the wrong way. I'm losing the right way.
Hey, guess who the real winner is? Me. Dame Lillard, baby. The Red Cafe of Portland.
I love it. I think he's that exact villain I want. Like, I'm grateful for his boomerisms. I mean, we spent the last month talking about the fucking Beatles on Twitter. And then rest in peace to the god Betty White. But, like, it's the only thing, like, Twitter agrees on. It's like, well, did Robert Redford actually have a love connection with Betty White? And I'm like, yo. And now we're talking about, like, winning the right way. Have the boomers won, dude?
Look, Dame Lillard's out there dropping these, like, Gangstar album skits after every loss. We're like roaches. We're going to keep coming back and losing the right way over and over again.
Yeah. Just more and more elements of hip-hop just reveal themselves to us as we follow the NBA. But I love Lillard for this, right? Because this is fun. And we all know what he means. And I don't even think he's wrong, but, like, I do think he's wrong. I celebrate LeBron James growing up in Ohio being like, is there a bigger world out there than basketball in Ohio? I'm like, yeah, go to Miami, man. It'll be really fun. Go to LA, start a business. Be a billionaire, whatever, like life is big. And did he do it the wrong way? To many people, I'm sure. It's like he should be doing this and that. Lillard, like, his coach signed a free agent contract in Detroit and won championships. Like, there's many ways to do this, and I'm sure he respects the hell out of Chauncey Billups. But Billups is one of those huge free agents that had much success, right?
Yeah, I mean, Billups got his first chance to play ball as Terrell Brandon's understudy. I think that was in Minnesota. And
He
then
drafted by the
signed
Celtics and then went to Minnesota, I
he
believe.
bounced around a little bit.
Yeah.
But look, I don't mind Lillard staking out this as his turf. This is the W that you want to claim. That you're the good guy. You're the one who's loyal and has like a set of hip hop codes that you live by. I think it is. I was looking at the Blazers cap situation going forward. If I'm their GM or ownership, and Lillard's like, I'm telling you guys, I'm never leaving. I'm in true blue, Mr. Portland. They can figure out how to win here. And I'm the GM. I'm like, Dame, we gotta talk, because I don't really know what
They're stuck.
Portland can do. They look more screwed than any other team in the league. They're not good. You know, they're right now 8 games under 500. But you look at their money situation. I mean, they've committed $90 million to Lillard, McCollum, and Powell next year, and that's without even bringing back Covington or Nurkic or.
Did they sign Nance to big money?
Nance makes 10, so that puts
something.
You know, but I'm saying that's putting you over $100 million off of Lillard, McCollum, Powell, and Nance.
That's tough.
And that's without even paying, one of the Zellers or bringing back like Macklemore, etc. I mean, that's $100 million through 4 guys, and you look at that as a team's core.
Yowza.
I don't know about that.
No.
And then and then when you take Lance out of the Nance, not Lance, Nance out of the equation, and you look at 2024, I mean, you've still got over $100 million in Lillard, McCollum, and Powell, because they all make more money. They all basically add $2 million in contracts. So I don't really know how that team does much of anything without blowing it all up and trading Lillard and getting some prospects. If he wants to stay there, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, good on you. If you enjoy living in Portland and your biggest emphasis is on quality of life and your moral code,
It's famous.
that means more to you than winning a title somewhere else, then more power to you, man. That rips. You're living the dream.
Yeah. And
You're losing ethically.
But I think he's doing a really smart thing, because I think he knows he can't beat any of the good teams at any given point probably for the foreseeable future. But he wins here because we've seen players like Westbrook in Oklahoma City being like the warrior. Like, he stuck to our team, and look at those triple doubles, MVP. And the minute you change the context, you just get lost as a player, and you kind of get shuffled around, and people view you differently. And I think that's heartbreaking for players of this caliber. And Lillard knows if he goes to LA and they don't win, he's going to be scapegoated. If he goes to any team and they don't achieve the ultimate, even if they do achieve the ultimate, he's the Robin. So he's kind of stuck now. By coming out and saying this and not even believing it, he kind of covers all of his bases and becomes like a beloved historical basketball player who is loyal.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
he knows.
Exactly.
He knows they can't win with this roster.
Yeah.
He knows what the salary cap situation is. Lillard's not stupid. He's a smart guy.
Yeah,
he
for sure.
knows exactly what's going on, and he's playing this right. This is his brand.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Loyal.
Yeah.
He's not questioning anything about living in Portland, or maybe he questions their ability to win here, but that's where he wants to do it because he knows they have to move on.
Yes.
And that he cares about his legacy in Portland. He wants to be the best Blazer of all time, which he is, and he doesn't want to be viewed as someone who left it on terms other than the ones that he had described over and over and over the way that he wanted them to be. You follow what I'm saying?
Of course,
Like
of
he can't
course.
reverse course now.
Yes.
He has to lean in while basically nudging them and being like, guys, send me out of here.
Yeah. Even if he wins 3 championships in Golden State, he will go into the Hall of Fame as a player that some people would think like was a sellout. And he has to make that decision right now because he's going to go into the Hall of Fame. And he's going to go as a Blazer, as a hero who didn't receive the help. Or he's going to go in as a champion who gave up. And he has to make that decision. And, you know, we talked about we have to assume everyone has the peak amount of effort because you don't get here without that. And I assume every player wants to win desperately. And that desperation is on a scale, always, based off of your skill. Because a mediocre to very good player cannot will a championship no matter how much they want it. And this is exactly what's happening with Lillard. And I assume he wants to win that championship more than anything. But also, I think he's smart and knows it might not happen.
Well, I don't think he wants to win a championship more than anything. Because if he
Are
did,
you sure? Like, of course he does. I think it takes over his entire mind. I think he's pissed. I think he does everything informed by that thought.
see, I kind of disagree because I think this is just about what your priorities are. That doesn't mean that Lillard doesn't want to win a title, but his priorities are his personal code of conduct, his loyalty to the franchise, to Portland as a city, to this
legacy.
being his brand.
Yeah.
He does value those things more than winning a championship. That doesn't
That's
mean
fair.
he's not consumed with winning one. I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
But, you know, you look at other guys, LeBron's was like, look, I'm from Cleveland. I did a lot here, but I want to win championships. That's big for me.
I love it. Yeah.
Carmelo could have gone and joined teams at other times. Carmelo was like, no, I want my money.
I wanna be a
live
businessman.
in New York.
Yeah.
I want to be in a city that I find exciting. I want to make my wife happy.
Yeah.
You know, there are. I don't think there's anything wrong about having different priorities. If someone said, my main priority is getting money and living somewhere with a beach, cool.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely, by all means.
Yeah.
And then they would say, but I also want to win.
Yeah.
That's just third.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Totally fair.
I see what you're saying, and definitely, like, there's different things. Being motivated by money is, yes, fucking do it. There's no one else on the planet who can do what DeMarcus Cousins does. He should search for compensation. And that being motivation, to me, is amazing, for sure. But I also think that, like, wanting something is impossible to gauge. And I just have to assume all these guys... Like, I wanted to be in a band more than anything for 2 years of my life. I just wanted to go on tour and, like, have a life doing that. But I was not good at playing music. And I was not good at playing guitar or singing or even touring. I was terrible at it. We did go on tour, and I fucking hated it. But it was something that, like, informed everything I did. And then I kind of kept on thinking about, like, what was possible and what was impossible. It doesn't really mean that I didn't have it consume me. It just meant that there was no way for me to show you that it consumed me.
I agree with that. But I also look at, you know, the irony of people being mad at KD for going to Golden State. And I count myself as someone who was annoyed at him for doing it because I felt that it made a team that was too good to be interesting. That the
Until
rest
they
of the league...
lost. Yeah, for
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
But the rest of the league just became boring. It felt perfunctory because that was just too much talent to have on one team, and
was
I
a
was
lot.
annoyed at
It
him
was
for
a lot.
doing that.
Woo.
But people were like, "Oh, this guy, he just went there to get like an easy chip."
No.
Right.
Not easy.
That's but I mean, I get that criticism. But what was driving him was that he was consumed by winning. He just wanted to win. He just was like, let me get this out of the way. I need to win. That is... So when we're talking about what governs what you do, for him, it was just winning. It wasn't that he wanted to go live in the Bay Area.
Or his
it
legacy.
wasn't that...
Yeah.
It wasn't his legacy at all. It wasn't his hometown. There was nothing. It was like he just wanted to win. And then ironically is villainized for the one thing that we say is that you're like the purest emotion that you're supposed to feel.
Yep.
Well, you're supposed to win, but the right way, unlike Dame Lillard, who's losing the right way.
If Dame Lillard wanted to win the right way, why isn't he wearing Timberlands on the court?
Bing bong. He is so going to play for the Knicks. It's written in stone. Bing bong, Lillard's home.
I was trying to think of the
Him
most
ciphering with Jadakiss and Fat Joe. It's all gonna happen. Red Cafe, Uncle Murder, True Life, Dame Lillard.
How are
Get ready.
the Red Cafe All-Stars not on the Knicks? Lillard and Fred VanVleet. VanVleet is the most hip-hop dude I've ever seen in my life. His backstory, his style.
Are you working? Are you working?
Yeah, man. Like, I just see that king, that dancing bear with the big beard. I think he has like a line of his weird. He's done some photo shoots with some third tier Timberland knockoff kind of things, and like he's just so damn hip hop, man. MSG would love him. How did we blow that free agent signing? We never had a chance, but
You know what we had a chance for?
the perfect pod,
The perfect god darn pod.
and we did it.
Well done.
We did it. We did it the right way.
We won
I love cookies.
morally,
I love cookies.
ethically.
I love cookies. I love cookies.